Welcome, everyone, to tonight's episode of Pivotal Change. I am your host, Ryan Conn, and we have a very special show for you. The recent events of the assassination attempt on former President Donald Trump is obviously making huge waves, as it should, in the media. And I have assembled a line of guests tonight that are very dear friends of mine that all have very dynamic backgrounds in various areas of law enforcement and government. And we're going to talk all the way through about the local type of preparation and response to the sniper response and the preparation and the communication, all the way to the large scale response of how the entire overall scene should have been set. And we're going to kick off tonight with probably one of the closest to me guests that I've ever had on the show, my very own brother, Ross Kahn. Now, Ross is currently serving as a SWAT team leader. He's got over a decade in law enforcement. He has a prior service history in the Marine Corps, and he is just a wonderful individual overall that is just consumed with tactics and keeping people safe and doing the absolute best job he can for the American people. So, Ross, welcome, and thank you for coming on the show tonight.
Well, thank you for having me, brother. I appreciate it.
It's absolutely my pleasure, I can assure that. And only because we are limited for time, I'm going to go ahead and jump us right into the first set of questions because I want people to get an insight from a mind like yours and how something like this could happen. What should the response be, and what should the follow up be? So, starting off, give us from specifically a local mindset of how SWAT teams prepare for this, how SWAT teams scout, set up, get in position, and how patrol officers are supposed to coordinate with federal agencies and their roles and their boundaries. What are those dynamics? What are you doing as a SWAT team and a set of patrol officers to secure a scene like this and execute your duties?
Well, that's a good question. Probably start with the Secret Service was coming to town. We have task force agents that work with our police department. You work with Homeland Security, DEA, and ATF and stuff like that. So I would hope and assume that Secret Service would contact their local agencies and ask for whatever resources it is that they would need. In regards that, I'm sure there'd be initial briefs with with Secret Service and what they would want of us, personnel, fill in the gaps, and such things like that. So there'd be an initial planning process, and I'm sure they'd be in charge of a good portion of that, and our key leaders would be there. In regards from a team leader's perspective, we would probably get something where you'd have to have, after the planning process, some sort of recon of the site. Is it a good site? Can you use it? Where are areas of it or avenues of attack or approach? Where could you be most vulnerable? Now, a Secret Service, for a certain aspect, their priorities of work is the president, and they have a 360-degree environment, especially if it's outdoors, where they have to be concerned with. So if they can only have so many assets, and the Secret Service is saying personnel was an issue, was what we're hearing, then they're going to focus a lot of their assets in that interior cordon with everything. So for us in law enforcement, they want snipers, we'll give them snipers. They want police officers or deterrents with flashing blue lights in parking lots to stop avenues of approach if someone can't climb up a ladder or an air conditioning unit, whichever one it happens to be right now. Not only that, you'd have people that would be on a post the night or nights prior, not allowing people to get in any sort of position leading up to the event. From that, even though we'd probably be in charge of the outer cordon, there should be cross communication. There should be a command hub, which I'm sure they have. There should be a person from every agency that is there at the command hub as well. Cross communication is key. Not everybody's on the same radio channel or same radio frequency. And not only that, there should be partnerships or buddy teams where maybe a local law enforcement has a Secret Service agent with them. I'm not saying holding their hand, but they're right there for cross communication. Those are options that exist. At this time, I can't say that's what they did. There's a couple what ifs and whys out there right now, and I'm going to let those fill in the blanks as time comes in.
Yeah, that's great. We don't want to do a lot of supposing, so kind of probably painfully summarizing what you're saying to almost too simplified of an approach is that there's going to be incredible preparation. You're going to be putting people and resources in the right places, lots of scouting. You said the buddy teams are going to be pairing up, both federal and local are going to be working in tandem together. Secret Service is going to come in way ahead of time and tell you, here's where our gaps are, here are the needs that we need from you. And then everybody's going to be ultimately kind of layer themselves in zones of responsibilities. Again, you said Secret Service is, hey, we're the body of the former president is our primary concern. And you said, hey, if you need dogs, snipers. Now, specifically, some of the logistics and tactical plans. Does it surprise you that there was not aerial coverage of an event like this? Even not necessarily helicopters or the lower level airplanes, but even just drones with as cheap and available as those are.
Oh, I absolutely agree. Drones are a great asset, and most drones, or at least for us, police department, they all have thermal FLIRs, all sorts of other options to use. And you can say, okay, hey, only 3 drones are going to be flying up the air at any time, and we know what our drones look like. You see a random drone, you take care of it accordingly. In the military, we have devices. When I was in the military, called Thor systems that jam radio frequencies, high, low, and ultra high frequencies. Now I'm sure nobody's cell phones would probably be working during that if those were going off, but those things exist. Not only that, you have what we had in the Marine Corps called IR strobes. We used them all the time. You can put IR lighting on units, on people, even if they're in plain clothes, and your drones in the sky know where your unit's at or who's talking or who's saying what. If someone had IR strobes, especially snipers or anyone who was an incognito environment or clothing, and their strobe is not working, or they don't have a strobe, that shooter on the roof would have been identified very quickly by a drone that says that person doesn't have a strobe on.
Gotcha.
Again, those are different options, but the fact that there were no air assets is quite shocking.
Yeah, I can agree with that. You obviously know my background, and I think some of the viewers do from the history of the show as well. But so that gets a question going about the responsibilities, and like you said, the equipment and the assets not being used on scene should cause us to scratch our heads a little bit, either from a local or a federal side of things. And again, the federal requests would have been what triggered that. They would have said, hey, here's our gaps. This is what we need. Let me get a little bit of clarification, possibly, on some roles of responsibility. This entire event ultimately is under the umbrella of Secret Service. Where do responsibilities and who can make a decision versus have a decision overruled? Are you familiar with any of those protection details? Or hey, the Secret Service has the final say. If they want us to go somewhere or not go somewhere, it's really not up to local law enforcement to say, I'm going to breach those boundaries and I'm going to go ahead and do my own thing, because would that cause issues if people just started doing their own thing outside of the requests of some of those Homeland Security, FBI, Secret Service requests?
Yeah, so I can't speak for the Secret Service's SOPs, their standard operating procedures. I don't know specifically what they have entail in that regards. And then you branch off to another category of ROEs, rules of engagement, that you have to deal with. You go into country, rules of engagement are quite different. You go to Iraq, Fallujah, guys talking on a cell phone, maybe he's calling in mortars, and you do what you need to do. You can't do that in country. So your rule of engagement is quite different here. And with the responsibilities for what you're allowed to do to the individual, we all have command. There's command and control that exists. There is all the way back down till you finally get to the individual user, who should be understanding what his commands and his ROEs are. We also know that there are times that someone has to do something that is outside of the initial command.
Right.
I'm
Let me jump in there, only because I have a couple more questions, and unfortunately, we do only get so much time to run an episode every night. But the threat, so somebody might have to break outside of the normal realm. So we have some inclinations of a threat. He came with a spotting scope, the rangefinder earlier. Then it was discovered he's climbing on the building. Then it was confirmed he is armed and putting himself into an elevated position. What is the SWAT team, the quick reaction force, the patrol response going to be? We saw them running around the building. What are you aware of as your normal quick reaction force patrol response? Did that look appropriate? Is that what should be happening? And educate the people what would be a normal response if an elevated threat level like that is received.
Yeah, so the SWAT team one should be able to, okay, you're saying there's a threat, a possible threat from this location, locate and close the distance, which you're saying that people already have eyes on this individual. So we should be able to try or attempt to be making either contact or lethal contact with this individual if it comes to it. But on the other side, from the Secret Service and protection, if there's a possible shooter and you're saying there's a possible shooter in an area of an avenue of taking a shot, They should have taken the president off the stage. He should have been pulled off the stage, put him in cover and concealment for 15, 25 minutes, however long it takes to assess, oh, is that a local PD shooter up there that's just finally getting a position or an actual threat? Pretty sure the crowd wouldn't have mind a 15 to 20-minute delay. With that, I've heard rumors that they say that, oh, they maybe thought it was an LEO climbing on the roof, and other stuff, and we're not going to deal with that.
Right.
But we have to have positive identification, especially in CONUS or in country, in regards to what you're going to end up shooting.
Gotcha.
And
so now the shot happens. What's the expected law enforcement response? The shot has happened. The threat to the president has occurred. Counter snipers have engaged. What is SWAT? What is patrol doing in that moment? Shots are fired. What's the expected response?
Okay, so I'm still going to use a Marine Corps acronym called ADRAC, and it basically means attention, description, direction, or attention, direction, description, range, assignment, and control. And it pretty much shooter on the roof or on the roof, 100 meters. Someone get up there, get a shot on them, fire at will or something like that. Okay, I'm giving a little bit more of an extreme, but you're going to figure out where the shooter is. And he managed to get 5 or 6 shots off. And after probably 3 or 4, someone should be able to get a pretty good idea where that is and close the distance. Now, the guy is 25 feet up. Field of view could be limited from your position, which obviously matters. And unless you're getting to an extreme distance of probably about 40 or 50 yards and then beyond, you probably don't have a good view on that shooter that's on top of that roof at that elevation. But then again, people are standing and sitting in stands, and they're able to see them. And if you had air assets, it would have been a problem. I hope I lost you sound-wise.
So very good points. Tell me about leadership. How can a person that's not in law enforcement or government take a leadership lesson away from what happened, what response was given, and how we can apply this to wisdom, other realms of life, not directly related to sniper, counter sniper situations?
Yeah, so from leadership, I hate to say it, but when something goes wrong, it goes all the way to the top. And it sounds like it has been, and we've been hearing different reasonings or excuses or whys to what happened. Okay, but ultimately responsibility goes all the way to the top. Even though you have team leadership and you might have screwed something up, you admit to what you screwed up, you try to figure out and you try to fix it. Hopefully you don't screw it up. But then it's still the same next echelon. Where did we screw up? A lot of times it's with communication. In a situation like that, I would hope it wasn't due to complacency. But the leadership is who's in charge. It's who ultimately makes the decisions, because they command us in the long run. At the very end of the day, we do what orders that they say. And if I'm doing the orders as they say it, and those things end up being wrong, it's still leadership's.
Thumbs up, Thomas. Well, good. I'm gonna jump in here, and that's gonna be a good springboard for us to go into the next guest. Unfortunately, that reaches us to our commercial break. So, Ross, I want to say thank you so much for having us on here. Your service to the country, both locally and domestically and on the foreign level, is greatly appreciated. I'm proud to have you as my brother. And for everyone else, stay tuned. We've got more guests coming on to talk about different aspects of both leadership and what went to play on this assassination attempt. And we've got 45 more minutes for you on Pivotal Change. So we'll be back after this break.